Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another astrological report. This is for March 25 through March 31st of 2025. I hope you're all doing well. So this week we do have a lot going on up in the sky. There are some pretty big changes taking place and a couple of major events, including a solar eclipse by this weekend. So we're still in eclipse season. It's still a wild card season, and some volatility and unpredictability is in the air. But as far as the big changes taking place, what we have here is Venus has retrograded back to the world point. It's right on 0 Aries, the world point, for the next 2 days. And then Venus will change signs and ingress back into Pisces, where it is considered exalted. And Venus will also be conjunct Neptune. Venus will back all the way to the north node of destiny. That's not going to be exact until Tuesday, Monday night into Tuesday morning. So I'll be talking about that on next week's report. But everything about money, resources, value, trade, the economy, the markets, it's all coming into a fateful point, especially by next week, but even a little bit of a change here, most likely by this week, as Venus changes signs again. So that's going to really change financial matters, preferences, and general relationship dynamics. I'll get more into that, but we also have Mercury backing up as well this week, back to the world point. Right now, today, it's making a second sextile to Pluto. That's a 3-part process. So there is strong mental stimulation today and communication, powerful words. I'll be speaking about that. And then Mercury will back up into Pisces as well. Now that's where Mercury is debilitated. And Mercury will also be conjunct Neptune. I believe, it'll be conjunct Neptune by Sunday, March 29. Or rather, is that, this is Sunday, so that's Saturday, March 29 on the eclipse. So some pretty big changes for Mercury. So the way we're thinking, perceiving, communications, and things get a lot more sensitive and intuitive by the time we get into this weekend into next week. So we have that, and also this Mars squaring Chiron is perfecting this week finally. And that's going to be by tomorrow on March 26th. But again, it's in play all week long, and that is one of the most critical aspects that we have. And Mars is going to be the ruler of the solar eclipse. That solar eclipse is going to be Saturday, March 29 here. It's going to be at 9 degrees of Aries, ruled by this Mars. So I'll be talking about that when I go through the daily charts, talking about the eclipse. And by that point, Mercury will be back in Pisces and conjunct Neptune. And then one of the biggest things we have is this Neptune changing signs. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011, 2012-ish there. And so this is a really rare change. Neptune ingressing the world point Aries. First time since the 1800s. So that's going to be exact on Sunday, March 30th with that change. I'll be speaking about that as I go through the daily charts and I get to next Monday. But that is a huge change for the world that is happening very quickly this week already. So, and again, March 31st doesn't have any major aspects, but the moon will be in Taurus. So this week, the moon is halfway through Aquarius in the waning phase. It's going to ingress Pisces. We're going to enter the dark moon phase from Pisces, closing out that Pisces cycle. But the moon will be making a lot of conjunctions to all of these planets here, mostly here on March 28. So Friday, very active lunar day with a ton of conjunctions at the end of Pisces, and then the moon will ingress Aries, still be in the dark moon phase, but then reach the sun for the new moon / solar eclipse the following day on Saturday, like I said. Then the moon will be waxing forward from that solar eclipse all through Taurus, and that's where the moon will be on Monday without any major aspects going on that day. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before where there's literally no aspects. Maybe once before, but it's very rare. So again, you can find all this written out for you in the description below, and I'll be going through it all here. All right, so I do want to start, before I get into the daily, I want to mention something about the economy. So it looks like my prediction is holding up that I made a couple weeks ago about March being the bottom. I said the bottom was pretty much right now, and it could be, within a week. And it just so happens that we did find the bottom. I have pulled up a chart here. This is the SPY from the S&P 500, the top 500 companies. And we saw that the high was up here. This red line is the high. And we took that big dip, and it does look like March 13, a day before that lunar eclipse, was the bottom. And then we've been up ever since. We've had a couple down days. By the way, each one of these candles represents one day. So the white is a down, the green is up. So again, we hit that bottom on March 13th, and we're way up here now today. So that's quite a bit that we've already gone up. So even if, this eclipse coming up changes something, or Venus backing up, which I was predicting on that video I made for you guys that at the last week of March here, it would probably be looking better. And so again, it's following my prediction pretty well here. So even if we have some more down days, we have a lot of areas of support. We would have to drop a huge amount to even get back down to this low again. So even if we came all the way back down, we would likely, still bounce off of this support level. So to me, it's looking like this is the low. We'll see if it holds up through April here. But right now, it's looking like we found that low. And that was already a couple weeks ago. So again, that's why I was saying I'm not worried about the economy or the market. I mean, we're not that far away from all-time highs up here. But I tell you, if you guys bought in like I was suggesting, you got to do what you do for yourself and make your own decisions, of course. But if the people that did buy back in, you're already looking really good, and you have a lot more to go here. So anyway, I just wanted to update you on the markets, and my prediction for the economy is I'm still thinking that what I've said is going to be correct so far. So things are looking good. All right, so with that said, let's start here on Tuesday, March 25. We have the moon in the middle of Aquarius. So today is a moon Aquarius day, and overall, there's some decent aspects. We have 3 easy aspects today and 1 in conjunction. So the moon is building towards the trine with Jupiter today, and that's going to be exact here. That's actually the first aspect of the day. That's going to be exact at 11 a.m. on the West Coast. So that's a pretty good aspect. This is a social aspect, lunar aspect here. The moon in Aquarius talks about groups and friends and community. It's more outward and communicative, objective and social, but it is the moon in Aquarius. So people generally don't emotionally respond the way we think they would. This is a placement that generally people want to be more detached and objective about things. But as the moon is applying towards that trine with Jupiter, there is a little bit of a more of a momentum, positive feeling in the air. It's intellectual, it's communicative, it's social. This is a great day for communicating if you need to, writing, doing material things, especially because this Jupiter down here in Gemini, it's building up momentum forward, but it's being ruled by Mercury. And Mercury today is in a sextile with Pluto. So again, today can be a great day for communicating, doing errands, mercurial things, messages, working on projects and things like that. But it's also a day for powerful communications. This can be persuasive communications, intense communications. There can be highlights, insights of things, that we're picking up on. And it's also connecting to the social, the community side of things. Our own freedom and independence is still going through this process. Our values are still generally going through this process. Relationships are still going through this process before we're more confident and certain where we stand with what we want. So this is an ongoing process to help us still gain more and more clarity about where we stand with things. But this can also be very strong political day as well, with the Aquarius factor and the communication factor. Important information in communications today is possible. But overall, it should be a flowing day. Now, we still have this background energy. First of all, we still have the background of eclipses that we're dealing with, which is still, like I said, wild card and unpredictable. And we do have a lot of Aries, which is more aggressive, more instinctive, but the sun is exalted. And then we're about to have Venus exalted. So we're about to have two planets exalted here, which can help the dynamics out a lot more compared to where they've been. And again, I've been predicting that when we would come to this shift, things could get a little better in the short term here. But we still have aggression, some conflict, and we have this aspect that I've been telling you folks for weeks. It's been in place with this Mars square Chiron. I look at that as accidents and injuries from these two signs. So this is where you still have to be extremely cautious. Take your time. Mercury is still retrograde, so slow things down, check yourself, and just be extra careful and cautious so that you don't get injured or have any accidents or anything like that. And there can still be some conflict here in the world. There can still be accidents in the world as well. Another big thing that sometimes solar eclipses and then this Neptune changing signs, again, there could be some natural disasters. I can't guarantee it's going to be this week because this is talking about something bigger than just this week. But it could, you still have to be extra cautious. This can show earthquakes or volcanoes or, again, other natural disasters and even fire. With Neptune coming into Aries now, it does seem like, that could be firestorms on some sort of new level as well this year. Hopefully it's not going to be this week, but still, just be extra cautious with Mars squaring Chiron. So we have that, but then we have also the moon making a sextile to Chiron later on today. So overall, there's pretty decent aspects. Like I said, 3 easy aspects today. The moon is also having to in conjunct to Mars, though. So let's move this forward through the day here. So like I said, for the afternoon hours, it's looking pretty good generally with this moon trine Jupiter. More expansive socially and communicatively. And then also it's going to be tonight when that moon makes the in conjunction to Mars. So that's where we have to make some adjustments to our mood, our action, our needs, home and family stuff versus friends and social stuff going on by Tuesday night here. And then that's when the moon is also sextile Chiron for the last aspect tonight, which can just help people's feelings and confidence be better. But, again, this Mars square Chiron is super tight right here. So if you do have any planets, 21 and even more so at 22, because that's where the exact square will be, 22 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, then again, you are wrapped up in this Mars square Chiron, and you should be extra careful. Or if you have the cardinal cross on your chart, so if you have 21 degrees Aries rising, or 21 degrees Capricorn rising, or 21 Libra rising, or 21 Cancer rising, then you also should be extra careful and slow down and take your time and just be aware of this in the background of accidents and injuries, very likely. All right, so again, today is all about the moon in Aquarius, but things will be changing as we move forward and we get to Wednesday on March 26th. We start things off with the moon at the last degrees of Aquarius in the overnight hours, early morning hours, I should say. And the first aspect is the moon squaring down to Uranus. So this is 2 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast. So early morning hours on the East Coast and still probably morning there in Europe. The day starts off with a little bit of unpredictability, surprises, changes, excitement. So just be willing to make some adjustments, some mood adjustments if you're starting your day off with this aspect in play, you might have to change your plans or something like that potentially. It's not going to last long. It's only a few hours, and it's not going to set the tone for the whole day. But looking at the day here, there's actually no easy aspects here on Wednesday. So I think Tuesday is probably a lot easier than Wednesday, generally speaking, because then we have the moon in conjunct to the south node as well, and we have to adjust to things that are undone, work and service stuff here, or adjusting to something from the past that's undone, again, that we need to look at or do or work with in some way, or just adjust our mood, our feelings to something here on Wednesday morning. And then the moon will change signs later on. And that will be the moon ingressing Pisces. So this is a big mood change here on Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening, depending on where you live. Now things get much more sensitive, much more intuitive. But this is also where people need to be careful of their boundaries. Now that the moon is in Pisces, people generally absorb energy like a sponge for good or bad. And it's very difficult to understand if what we're feeling when the moon is in Pisces is actually us, our own feelings, or if we're picking up on feelings from other people. So the moon here, it just shows that people, you have to guard yourself. You have to protect yourself from your surroundings, your environment. Make sure it's healthy and peaceful and nice. And, because again, even your environment, you can pick up things very easily with the moon moving through here. Now things are putting the emotional focus into behind the scenes, a little more private. And again, things really get a lot more sensitive, especially as that moon is going to make conjunctions with everything as it's moving back into Pisces here. So the moon will be in Pisces now for the next 2.5 days, trying to close out that last Pisces cycle before we get to the new cycle in Aries. So now that the moon is in Pisces, it's being ruled by Jupiter in Gemini. But it's going to be at odds with that for the next 2 days at the same time. So the more intuitive, unspoken, behind the scenes things going on versus the outer mercurial news and information. All right, so then we have this Mars squaring Chiron exact on Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, you have to be extra cautious. It's not just a one-day thing, though. As you know, I've been talking about this for so long, but it's exactly at 22 degrees is this square. So it can be physical stuff like accidents and injuries, but it's also internal stuff for some people. Confidence level, everything about Aries that's been trying to heal and go through this process for a few years already. Aries is one of the most confident signs there is. And with the sun here, that's usually very confident. But there's some issues because of Chiron here. So confidence, insecurity, how we feel about the self, how we feel about initiation. We've been in a very soft era for a while here, and now we're coming into a hard era. So we have to toughen up and be willing to take the initiative in this next era coming up that I'll be speaking more and more about. But that requires healing internal issues that prevent people from having courage and bravery that's needed in this time frame. So again, this could be people on some level feeling insecure about something as well. So you just have to work with that if it affects you. It's not going to affect every single person. And it's kind of the turning point for this issue, because from this point on, Mars is going to turn into trines with all this Pisces and a sextile with Uranus. And Uranus is actually, Saturn is building the sextile with Uranus. It's in play all this week as well. It's been building up for a while, but it's going to be exact by next week. So Saturn and Uranus are in support of each other, which is very rare. And Mars is also getting in on this. So again, that's going to be next week, but it is a good thing that Saturn and Uranus are making a sextile, because that's going to be helpful for the economy, for government, for money and resource dynamics and overall change that can happen for government and rules and structures and all that kind of Saturn stuff. We have the ability to really be innovative and go through positive changes by making changes to rules and structures and guidelines and all these types of things. We can be successful by changing those things. We can't always change things for Saturn, but in this time frame, we can. And I'll talk more about that when that aspect comes exact. But again, it's building up all week, so that's something positive in the background as well. All right, so this is the hardest aspect for Wednesday night, Mars square Chiron. Luckily, with this Mars during this moment, it's being ruled by the moon that just came into Pisces and doesn't really have any major hard aspects. So that's good. That's helpful. At least the moon isn't in something, but it is applying towards Saturn. And we'll get a lot more heavier as well as we move forward here from this point forward. So then we get to Thursday, March 27. The moon is now entering, the moon is still in the early degrees of Pisces here. And this is where we have some big changes now. Venus changes signs again, retrogrades back into Pisces at 29 degrees. It's still a critical degree, but it's Venus exalted now. So we have to kind of see how the markets are responding to this by Thursday. I think even more so as Mercury backs up as well, and then the moon reaches all that. So I think we're going to see some of the bigger changes in the markets probably by next Monday, next week. But this is a big change now. Now we have Venus, where it's not just about the self and freedom and independence anymore. Now people are generally going to get more sensitive, more compassionate, more empathetic. But this is a dynamic that's changing in the world, because we've had that Neptune, energy there for so long that has been, like I've said so many times, distorting everything about Pisces, amplifying things about Pisces. And Pisces does deal with empathy and sensitivity. It's just that it's gone too far over the years. The world has gone way too soft, way too empathetic, where it's out of balance now. And so as Venus comes back in, we still want to maintain some level of a healthier balance with empathy and sensitivity and caring about others and humanity and all this kind of stuff. But we also have to factor in the self. We can't just self-sacrifice for everybody else. We have to still think about the self here with the sun in Aries and all this shifting into Aries for Aries, the solar eclipse coming up. So we're going to work with this in a different way, perhaps a better way, as Mercury and Venus cross over Neptune, and then Neptune leaves Pisces and, dips into Aries. There's some sort of a major change with how we're perceiving things here, especially in this moment that's starting around our values, our resources, our money compared to other people's money, other people's needs. Again, relationship stuff is going through a process here. And generally now, I don't think that this is like full on Venus, Neptune, the best sweet love in the universe. Venus crossed over this point already once before. And I remember the day that Venus was conjunct Neptune. It wasn't a very sweet day for a lot of people. Sometimes it can be disillusionment, especially considering that we're at the very end of this Pisces with this conjunction, Venus and Neptune. So it can also be, trying to see some truth that's been hard to understand and see where we stand with relationships and preferences, the other people in our life. So I think it still can be a lot more beneficial for relationship and more compassion and empathy and more the ability to want to work with other people more so than just the self. But it's not fully that, so I hope that's clear. It's still a process of trying to figure it out. But, it's also re-looking at dreams too and fantasies and in some cases going through the disillusionment of those older dreams and fantasies that may haven't played out, in the way that we thought in some cases. But I don't want to make it look like it's a totally negative thing, because I still think overall this is shifting into something better for us. And again, generally it can be about the markets. I do think that this should be an improvement. I already showed you it's been improving already, but we'll have to see, because the last eclipse has made everything go up, and we'll see with this next eclipse if it has any effect. So still, I think it's an improvement overall for value, for money, and resources. And this is also much more now, especially when Mercury gets there, but even now kind of starting, this is much more of a preference for escapism into your own world and your own preferences of things. This can be really great, again, for music and producing and creating things as well. So film and photography and music and all these types of things. If you were working on any type of a major project, already in that regard, then this is a great time to go back and fix things, keep working on creative projects that need to be adjusted and stuff like that. But it can still increase more of imagination and creativity, generally speaking. I think that it could slightly increase romance as well, but I wouldn't get too carried away with that, because overall, I still feel like it's more of a disillusionment where we're trying to look at things differently and leave these old dreams, leave these old illusions and delusions of things, so that we can come into this fresh new dynamic for the self, for the future. So anyway, it's still overall, I think, an improvement. But also be careful of bubbles, the second half of this week with Venus and Mercury meeting up with Neptune. Make sure you're seeing things realistically and check your preferences and what you desire and what you want for the rest of this week. And don't get carried away with anything. All right. And I covered both the Venus and Pisces and the Venus conjunct Neptune there. Still a critical degree, so I'm pretty sure that it should be positive, but there's always a chance with that criticalness there. But we'll have to take a look at the market on Thursday for sure, see how it reacts to that. And then the only other aspect for the rest of the day is the moon squaring Jupiter. Like I said, this is where the moon is at odds with this Jupiter in Gemini. And that's going to be by the second half of Thursday evening and Thursday night. Tends to show things are overinflated, too much of a good thing, big appetites for things, big needs for things. It could be overly generous, overly compassionate. It could be doing too much. Emotions could be big for good or bad, over the top with stuff, things like that. Also, the way we feel intuitively could be at odds with our beliefs or other people's beliefs and communications and information. We're having a hard time with how we're feeling about certain information, certain wisdom, certain knowledge, anything like that. I don't think it's a terrible aspect, but it just puts things over the top a little bit. So that is Thursday on March 27. And then we get to Friday. On March 28, we start the day off with one of the busier days out of the week. Like I was saying, the moon is making a ton of conjunctions now from this point forward. And now Saturn enters 24 degrees for the first time in decades, 24 Pisces, with the moon there, and forming that sextile to Uranus. Again, it's not going to be exact till next week, but it's already building. And I think with the moon moving through that, it's picking up on that aspect right off the bat here on Thursday morning. This will be mostly relevant for people in Europe because it'll be a little later in the morning because it's 4 o'clock a.m. on the West Coast here. First thing in the morning on the East Coast, you can take advantage of this as well. So it is serious. The day starts off with the moon conjunct Saturn. That's typically feeling some pressure. It's a little more heavy, serious time. It's still people, pulled behind the scenes. It is still sensitive. But because there's this outlet to Uranus, again, it's about looking at, and this will be, I'll talk more about this, like I said, for the following week as well, where we can look at rules, structure, systems, laws, government stuff. These things have the ability to go through positive changes if you're willing to make changes and be innovative and step outside of the box. But because Uranus is in Taurus, I think it's helpful, again, for the market and the economy overall, with Saturn making that sextile. Also, government in this phase, it's not overly radical, actually. I mean, I know some people are going to say that, but just based on astrology, it's not showing that. With Saturn sextile Uranus, it's actually capable of being, there's some progressiveness here too. Changes that are trying to happen in major ways. But again, I'm going to talk more about that because it's actually a quite positive aspect. So again, emotionally, people could be picking up on that here on Friday morning, being open to changes and open to innovation with money, with management, with systems and structures and rules of your own life. If you want to change some rules in the household or in the family, or there just needs to be some new structure going on, then this is the time to be initiating those changes this week or this weekend and then into next week. The moon is trine down to Mars. That was actually the first aspect before Saturn conjunction. But even Mars is building the trine to Saturn, like I said, and the sextile to Uranus. So I think things are going to turn to be a little bit easier. There's a great day here for taking action, taking the initiative, getting things done. There's still a lot of water, still emotional, sensitive, intuitive, but we also have some fire, some passion, and some instincts as well with the sun in Aries. And then Mercury backing up to the world point. There can be a lot of important communications and information on the global level here by the end of this week. Well, Venus there already, so all week long and into the weekend. And then this is the moon is conjunct the north node of destiny as well. So it's a destined day on Friday. Whatever is happening is pushing us forward on the path that we are needing to develop in the short term, the end of Pisces. And this is also, like I said, the dark moon phase. So things are closing out. There's a feeling of preparing for the new that's coming here. So everything is destined, and even money, resources, and relationships, I would say, is destined because the moon, conjunct the north node and then conjunct Venus, and then later Venus reaches that north node. So from this point forward, it's all destiny for the future about important things, money, resources, and relationships and values pushing us forward. So whatever happens, it's a destined day. And then the moon is conjunct Venus and Neptune before it changes signs. So talk about sensitive. Now we have 3 points here, all at 29 Pisces. This is a super critical degree. It's the end of all endings, right here. It's just that Venus is going the opposite way. But it is pretty sweet. The moon conjunct an exalted Venus and Neptune. So all those things I already talked about, film, photography, music, producing, creating, anything like that, this would be an excellent time to be working on those things, all day on Friday, especially the second half of Friday here. It won't last because there's going to be a change with the moon ingressing Aries. But this is where Mercury's at 0 Aries now. So very sensitive in a sense of an ending about to happen, or a change at the very least about to happen here. And then that change happens as the moon ingresses Aries on that world point with Mercury. But it's still in the dark moon phase until that moon reaches the sun for the eclipse. But this is a big change to the mood and the circumstances from this point forward now on Friday afternoon, Friday evening, depending on where you live here. There's going to be a really big change. So the first part of the day, super sensitive and creative and imaginative and, romantic in some cases. But then there's this independence that's coming in strong now with the moon in Aries, this emotional need to be doing what you want to do, doing things quickly, things speed up again from this point forward. Things are more outward, more passionate, more instinctive from this point forward. And Mercury's in between the moon and the sun. So again, there can be important information and communications on the global level, even here on Friday as well. Now that the moon is in Aries and the sun is in Aries, this is all ruled by Mars. But now Mars has made its, it's still going to be in play a little bit with this Mars Chiron. You got to give it, another week to fully separate from that. But really, Mars is coming into a much better position overall from this point forward. So moon in Aries, strong, passionate, independence, freedom, individuality now becomes a stronger focus and need for people. And that's why I say, don't get too carried away about this romantic dynamic of Venus-Neptune in this particular phase, because it's still so much about the self and what people want individually. And we're not done with this overall process. But I think that this is going to be a turning point, because Neptune or Venus backing up to the North Node and eventually to Saturn to station direct, in 2.5 weeks. So we are going to see major developments. And I've been saying all along that I think when Venus reaches Saturn, we have a full moon in Libra, that's probably going to be a peace deal. That's what I'm thinking, and I'm hoping that's the way it plays out. But it can be deals on other levels. It can be you having a deal too, making a deal, making a commitment. But we're not quite there yet. We still have another 2.5 weeks to try to figure all that out. So again, we're not settled when it comes to money, relationships, and values until the second half of April. All right, and then we just have one last aspect here, and that's going to be the moon sextile Pluto from Aries. And again, we've had this connection over and over from Venus and Mercury, and now the moon and the sun went through there. So we're connecting to the social side of life, politics, really powerful circumstances and feelings. Can go through even an empowerment here as well on Friday evening, Friday night with that sextile. And it also connects your independence and your freedom with what you want to do. That could be more cooperative with your friends or your community, that they might want to do something as well in this moment on Friday night. It's still the dark moon, though, until the next day when we get to Saturday on March 29, and we start things off with this solar eclipse. So let me pull up that chart. 1 second here. All right, here's the solar eclipse chart. So the solar eclipse, it's a new moon. It's not the most powerful. This is just a partial solar eclipse. So it's not the most powerful because it's pretty far away from that North Node of destiny. And that North Node is in Pisces, very different from Aries. So that North Node already went across this eclipse degree earlier last year. And so again, I don't think it's the most powerful eclipse, but it is a powerful new moon at the very least, and it's technically an eclipse, which is a powerful new beginning for Aries, and even more so at 9 degrees of Aries. If you have any personal planets at 9 degrees of Aries in your chart, then this is a new beginning for that planet and what that planet is for you. But just look at your chart. What is Aries? It's a certain area of your life, and wherever you have Aries, it could be a partner for you. It could be your home and family. It could be your 6th house of your daily work routine and health routine. It could be your 11th house of groups and friendships. So wherever it is for you personally, that's where you need a certain amount of freedom and independence in that part of your life, whatever house that is. So that's where there's this really powerful new beginning that will have a long-term effect on your future in that area of your chart, possibly for the next couple decades. That's how powerful this new start is, because we've already had eclipses for the last year and a half in Aries and Libra, and this is the final turning point for Aries into this new era. And it's the beginning of this new era for the whole world. This kind of sets off that cycle for us, because we're in this cycle, and then it's followed up by Neptune into Aries, and then Saturn into Aries. This is the Aries cycle for the next year. That's really showing the big new beginning for the world as well. But it'll be most relevant for you if you have personal planets around 9 degrees. Now, give it a few degree orb. I don't get too carried away with orbs. I like to keep them below 3, but technically in some cases it can go beyond that. It's just going to be weaker and not as strong. The closer it is to 9 degrees, the stronger it is for you. So if you have 9 Aries, you're definitely under it. But if you have 9 Cancer or 9 Libra or 9 Capricorn, then you're definitely wrapped up into this. Now, if you have 9 degrees of the air and the fire signs, then this eclipse is more flowing for you. It's less kind of abrasive or quick with the change. It's just the change can be easier for you. If you have, say, a planet at around 9 degrees of Aquarius, 9 degrees of Sagittarius, Libra doesn't really count. That's the opposition. But if you have a 9 degree Leo, then this is trying that. And then a 9 degree of Gemini. So those are the signs that will most benefit, is the air and the fire signs. And then, like I said, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer will have changes taking place, but it'll be a little more of a tense, not as easy or flowing for those signs. And ultimately, this new beginning, we do have Mercury there. It is within 10 degrees, 9 degrees there, still kind of far away. Plus, Mercury would be going the opposite way. But it is a new beginning for our mind, the way we think and perceive things. And plus, Mercury's on the world point here, so it's also global, a shift of global perception, a shift of global communication and information, the way that we start to hear things come out in the world from this point forward. Now, this Aries eclipse, it's not going to be really visible. It's because it's only a partial. I did pull up some lines here. So this is where it's partially visible. So nothing in the U.S., South America, but we do have mostly Europe. Is going to see some of it there, it looks like. So some of these areas could be affected, but it's not just where the lines are. It's global as well. But that's where it is on the map anyway. And this eclipse is ruled by Mars. Now, it's deceiving because we see that red line so tight from Mars to Chiron, and that's a part of it. This can be a new cycle for the military as well, like just a whole new agenda for the general militaries across the world, new action plans. But there's this Cancerian side of it all, because it's all ruled by this Mars in Cancer. It comes right back to this. And then Mars in Cancer is ruled by the moon in this eclipse with the sun. The sun being eclipsed. So it's between Aries and Cancer. So check those two areas of your life. That's where there's big changes that are trying to happen, where you have Aries and where you have Cancer. And that whole purpose of Mars retrograde back to Cancer was to come back and fix things that needed to be fixed in your Cancerian area of life. But it could have stirred up a lot of tension and friction and changes in that area as well. It's been there for so long already. So Cancer is generally about safety and security. So this is a new beginning about the self to take the initiative on new life changes to get more safety and security and comfort in one's life. It's also about home and family life. It's about the self, your independence, your freedom, and your individuality versus your home and your family and what they need from you versus what you need for yourself, And then it's about property, real estate, the homeland, being guarded and protective. It's really a cycle about being protective And since the sun, when the sun ingressed Aries on the world point and it was ruled by this Mars, that's the kind of the birthday of the year. It shows that we're going to have this whole year connected to this need for safety and security and being guarded and protective of what's ours and the home and the family life. So it really comes back to a new beginning that's going to push people forward so that somehow we create the changes that we need for more safety, security, comfort, better home, better family dynamics, better property stuff, or again, changes in the property and the real estate stuff could be a part of this. And then on the nations, it's about the nation states, the homeland, the border, immigration issues are still going to be a huge part of what's playing out with this cycle. But eclipses have a tendency to shake things up, to show long-term changes for the future that's starting fresh here. So, again, I think that there could be natural disasters here, not necessarily on this day. It's possible. And when I say natural disasters, I'm really speaking about this next 2 years with a lot of significant new things happening that could shake up the world in a major way. But even this eclipse, sometimes these types of eclipses can show volcanoes erupting or other, Earth stuff, because the Earth is also going through the same dynamic that everybody else is. So expect some crazy, events around the globe. And then there can be new military stuff as well from this point forward, like I said. All right, so this moon, it does have a sextile to Jupiter. That's probably the only positive connection that it has, separating from Pluto. So yeah, an applying sextile to Jupiter. It's not super tight, and that just shows, because of the orb, it shows that over time within this whole cycle, yes, there can be growth and expansion and new opportunity from this cycle that is starting. Let's go back to other chart here. All right, so yeah, the sextile to Jupiter, and then we have the change from Mercury backing up into Pisces. So really, Saturday is all about eclipse day, wild card day, and a new beginning. So it's like a new moon, but it's more powerful, like I said, and will have a longer effect on the future. But it is a new beginning, a new cycle that we're starting now. Still an eclipse cycle, but this is the cycle that's going to, I believe, bring some changes to deals, like I said, and the overall market. All right, so with that, let's move this forward on Saturday. And the next aspect will be that sextile to Jupiter. So there's that. That is a positive connection of growth and expansion here, being more optimistic. It is still more of an outward, passionate, instinctive cycle as well. And it's like, what do you need to start in your Aries area of life? Whatever that area is for you. So for example, for me, that's exactly right on my home cusp of 4th house IC. So that's a new cycle for my home in my case. That could have a long-term effect on the future because it's an eclipse. So again, wherever you have it, there's something that's going to be connected to the future in that area of your life in a new way. All right, and whatever happens on this eclipse, it just changes the mind, changes the perceptions of things as Mercury backs up into Pisces again. And now, all of a sudden, we have all this Pisces again. We were getting rid of the Pisces, and now we have so much left. But Neptune is literally at the last minute getting ready to change signs here, which is the biggest thing by far. So this is by Saturday night that Mercury backs up into Pisces again and conjunct that Neptune at this last degree, last minute actually, for both Mercury and Neptune there on Saturday night. But now Mercury is considered debilitated. It's not as quick. It's not as sharp. It's more intuitive, less less verbally speaking, and now it's just more what's unspoken. But Mercury's in between Neptune and Venus now, so it's in between kind of a sweet spot. It's either going to be a sweet spot for some people or a disillusionment for other people, having to see the reality of something now that we've come back to look at it again for a second time, seeing it in a different light perhaps. But it's super intuitive and sweet. There wants to be some sweet talk here, some compassion, some more empathy. I'm pretty sure that it's still going to be pretty sweet overall. But if you have planets at the end of Sag or the end of Gemini or the end of Virgo, then it may not be as easy for you personally. But it's still critical. That's the thing about this. It looks pretty sweet, but I'm just not sure how it's going to play out necessarily. But it should be okay, generally speaking, especially on a personal level, behind the scenes, doing what you want to do. Again, it would be the best use of this is working on creative projects like film and music and producing and creating and all that kind of stuff, but more on the lines of going back and working on things that perhaps you've already been working on. And that's, of course, only going to be for a very limited amount of people, I'm sure, working on something like that. But it's still, we start to look at our values and our perceptions and just the way we're perceiving and thinking, and then the way people start to communicate. It may be some lack of clarity, a little more foggy, at this point again, maybe some uncertainty, just not quite sure the way we're thinking now that we have this change again. So you have to be patient with this, and this is going to take time to unfold before, again, we're a lot more clear where we stand with certain things. But it's a pretty big change, no doubt about it. And then we get to the following day on Sunday, March 30th, and the moon is conjunct Chiron square Mars. So first thing on Sunday morning now, on the West Coast here, it's super early, right after midnight into the morning hours. So for other people, early morning in Europe, just be cautious, be careful first thing on Sunday morning. Or if you're out on Saturday night, super late into the early morning hours, be careful on that night if you are out on Saturday night. In fact, I would kind of avoid going out on Saturday night just because the overnight hours does have this, which could be conflict or aggression or something going on. Again, accidents and injuries too. So still be careful of that. But once that moon gets past this square, then it all turns into something a lot easier from that point forward. So once we get past that aspect, then we have this big change. Neptune into Aries. It kind of snuck up on me here. I've been meaning to talk about it, but I'll just kind of briefly cover it here, and then I'll make more videos about it. But this is the first time that we've had this in our lifetime, of course. It's Neptune's roughly 165-year cycle. So it hasn't been in here since the 1800s. And last time Neptune came into Aries, it was literally the beginning of the Civil War. But the thing is you can't, not one planet is responsible for big events. There's always other things going on. And I've already gone through the US chart and all that. Because what happened last time when Neptune came into here, the USA was in a progressed full moon phase in Aries. Now the USA is in a progressed new moon phase. So the energy isn't there for a civil war. But this is a big change. Neptune, changing signs. Again, sometimes when Neptune changes signs, it can go out with a bang, but it's not going to, this isn't the one and only time. Neptune's going to be coming back through this, back and forth for the rest of 2025 and 2026. So there's going to be more opportunities for some sort of a big natural disaster or something from this shift that usually happens in the world. It's just a matter of, is it going to happen this month or the end of March or April or sometime else this year? That's the thing, is we don't quite know the timing of this kind of stuff. But So there's always that potential of some sort of big event in the world with this, but it can also just be this beginning of this change of an era that I've been talking about for so long here. So Neptune is what people, it's kind of the collective unconscious in a way. It's what people kind of glamorize and fantasize and romanticize wherever it goes around the zodiac. And it's also like what I always call Neptune is like what's holier than thou from the public's perspective, unconsciously. And so, for example, when Neptune was in Capricorn in the 80s, that was romanticizing and glamorizing capitalism. And capitalism won as the USSR fell. And so that was, Capricorn, the dream of building an empire, the dream of capitalism and all that, kind of Capricorn stuff of achievement. And then when Neptune was in Aquarius for years, that's when scientists became holier than thou. That's when the glamour came to the scientists, and that was like the end of the 90s into the early 2000s. And that's where they made all those like cable shows about scientists doing documentaries where they would like be interviewing scientists, like 5 different ones, and they would all be saying the same thing. They would switch back and forth, with them all saying the same thing on a sentence in a way. So it's like, and there'd be all these like weird scientists with the crazy hair and stuff. So that was like when scientists were like gods, and they were talking about, weird stuff like string theory and all these things, with Neptune in Aquarius. But then 2011, 2012, when Neptune came into Pisces, that went away, and the scientists weren't as popular anymore because they were full of it anyway in a lot of things. But then we have that Neptune in Pisces, and Pisces became what's holier than thou, and everything about Pisces became amplified and distorted like Neptune does. So empathy and over-compassion and dreams and fantasies and delusions and believing in things and spirituality and astrology and metaphysics and all the streaming sites. And so all this stuff was amplified, with that Neptune in Pisces. And now, and it's also like culture too, this Pisces is connected to culture and beliefs and spirituality that all got distorted and diluted from the Neptune and amplified. But Neptune doesn't rule Pisces. It's an outer planet. And so you can't take all the Pisces traits and now make it about Aries. So that's not how it works. The only reason we talk so much about, Neptune Pisces stuff is because it was Pisces stuff. So now Neptune is going to act a lot different in Aries than it was in Pisces. So now Aries becomes what's holier than thou. So for example, last time this happened, it was this big culture shift because a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I don't want to go there. But there's a political thing about Pisces versus Aries, and it happened last time that Neptune came in here, and we had that civil war. Because when Neptune comes into Aries, people are more willing to fight for what they believe in, because now we're looking at Aries, not Pisces. Pisces doesn't fight. Aries fights. So now people are more willing to go after what they believe and fight for what they believe. But there's still not going to be a full-on civil war in the way we had it last time because of other conditions going on. But it is a shift of consciousness, and culture and reality is shifting into a new perception from this point forward. Now, don't think that instantly here on Sunday everything changes. This is a gradual, this next couple years. We still have so much Pisces left, so we're not done with the Pisces. That's still going to be in play. But it's still this process of closing it out this next 2 years, especially this year of 2025. So as Neptune comes into Aries, we start romanticizing everything about Aries. Now, generally speaking, of course. So Aries becomes much more fantasized. So what is Aries? It's about taking the initiative. Aries is about pioneering things, pioneering your life, and being brave and courageous and being a hero. That bravery and that courage becomes more romanticized now. So soldiers become more romanticized. The brave people that fight, that stand up, that go after things, that make things happen. That's more romanticized at this point. But it's only the beginning, because Neptune will be here for years, building this dream up in a new way. So it's also a change of the generalized dream of the world. Neptune in Pisces was more of being stuck behind the scenes. It's a soft phase. It's more passive. Now we're coming into a more active, proactive, outward, new perception on reality. So, there's so much more to talk about it. I'm just trying to briefly cover this, in a weekly report real quick, but I'll talk more and more about it. So, last time we had the Civil War for the, first part of the 60s. And then after that was done, the West was expanded. We had the pioneers moving west. And so there's this dream there's a dream of something that people are going after. Last time it was gold. It was the dream of your land and the Wild West and all that. Now we also had guns. Guns become a lot more romanticized. Now the USA already has that naturally in the birth chart of romanticizing guns, because the USA is a cancer nation. The USA is a nation that does have fear. And it's about being guarded and protective of the government, because that was the whole purpose of this country. Now, we still are going to start romanticizing this guns in kind of in a newer way, in some sort of a way. And in the last cycle, if you think about it, it was the Wild West with the handguns, right? And the fastest gun in the West and things like that. So now it's going to be more futuristic in some sort of an updated way. So what will we be pioneering? Well, the odds are, in the context of the USA, the USA is wanting to be expanded, to pioneer new territory. So again, that could be the Greenland thing, the Panama, or different deals that Trump will end up making in this new era. That could be one part of it. It's also going to be Mars and outer space and exploring and discovering new things, most likely in space, since we've already done a lot of it on the Earth already. But it could be other things too that we're not even aware of, that we start discovering new things that we didn't know were there. So new discoveries and pioneering new things. And when it comes to the individuals, it's also about being willing to pioneer your path, trailblaze and be a leader and not a follower. Aries is not about being a follower. And so, again, even astrology is changing. Music is going to change. Culture is going to change here. It's just changing into a new flavor of being more active and brave and courageous and more daring and risky. And it's worth it. It's worth doing those things in this new era, with the dream building up for something that we want individually. So it's going to be different for everybody depending on your own personal chart and how 0 Aries affects you in your chart. If you have personal planets at 0 to 2 Aries, you're definitely wrapped up in this new era personally for you, which can be a good thing. I'm not looking at this as a negative thing. Also, I'm not looking at, Neptune as being confusing. That's more of the Pisces 12th house behind the scenes vibes. Again, we're not taking everything about Pisces to Neptune and now saying it's in Aries. Neptune amplifies Aries. It will distort Aries in some ways. So it can distort things in such like, again, people willing to die and fight for something. And it sounds romantic until they actually are dying and suffer in those ways. So there can be disillusionment about the dream, but there can also be dreams that are made too. Now, Neptune in Pisces was more of the gold rush, and that had disillusionment for a lot of people that went out west to get it, because not everybody made money doing that. And that was part of the Piscean disillusionment. But in Aries, people, were still going. They still had the dream. They're still wanting to pioneer land and all these new things for themselves. So again, that's going to be a big part of what we're moving into, is this new reality and perception of the world and ourselves and all that. But it's still, even this this Neptune Aries is ruled by this Mars, which is still talking about it's a global thing here, because this is the global world point. So it's a whole world that's shifting into a new era here. It's powerful. The whole world is going through changes, whether people like it or not. The changes that you're seeing in the world, it's only the beginning. It can't be stopped. We're never going back to the old world. So you have to accept it. We're moving forward in new ways, like it or not, on a global level. And again, I'm going to be putting out more videos about the global dynamics in the USA and all of that. So this is the big change for Sunday, first thing in the morning, and there's really no easy aspects all day long here. The moon is also in conjunct to the South Node, having to adjust to work and service and health and other things that are more practical versus what we want and our independence during this time, first thing in the morning. And then the moon does change signs as the day goes on. And the moon will ingress Taurus by Sunday afternoon. So the first part of Sunday, very different from the second half of Sunday here. Now that the moon is exalted in Taurus, it's ruled by an exalted Venus. So now we have 3 exalted positions: the moon, the sun, and Venus. This should be much more helpful for the market. Well, maybe the following day on Monday, we'll see. But now the moon here in Taurus, things want to slow down. Things want to become more indulgent, more comfortable, more peaceful. But the moon has to get past that square with Pluto. And that's actually the last aspect of the day. So all day here on Sunday, the second half, rather, that moon is building up to Pluto, which does show some intensity, some forced change and transformation happening by Sunday evening and Sunday night, especially with friends and group, community stuff, politics, money dynamics. So powerful, intense mood there until the moon gets past that, and then it does. And then, like I said, we get to Monday, March 31st, and there's 0 aspects, but the moon will be in Taurus all day, exalted, wanting to keep things nicer, more calm, more beautiful, more peaceful, ruled by that Venus, conjunct the North Node of Destiny, let's say Monday into Tuesday. So it'll be a very fateful day by next week with the market, with relationships, with purchases of any kind, and just general relationships. If you have any important relationships, Monday and Tuesday of next week, well, it's kind of this point forward for most of April that it's going to be destined, but this is the beginning stages of something destined for the future that's shaping up by next week. So when I come back next week, of course, I'll talk more about that, plus the Saturn-Uranus sextile, that Mars will also come into a minor grand trine. So things are going to probably be a lot different by next week. Let's take a peek forward here. Yeah, Mars comes into that minor grand trine with the moon here, conjunct Uranus and both sextile Saturn and Mars here. So this is by Tuesday morning. This is kind of going to be, this is going to be the turning point for things to probably be getting better and better with the market, with the economy, with news by next week. But we'll have to see how things played out this week, and then I'll adjust my interpretation when I come back for next week's report. But that's what we have, folks. So hope you got something out of that. Yeah, the moon will come into Gemini by Tuesday evening for next week's report. Venus with the North Node, and then Mercury will reach the North Node. So next week will be definitely the most destined week and fateful. All right, so that's what I have for you. Hope you got something out of that. Appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great week ahead. Take good care.